Welcome back. This is the end. It's our final wrap up, day 4. They're getting ready to do the keynotes. We're running a little behind, but we got to wrap this thing up. Mandy Logan's with me to do the final closeout.
Yes.
Welcome.
Thank you so much.
How was your week?
It was packed and incredible. I've got to say, I think the first, especially Monday, Tuesday, the amount of energy and information and I felt that the overall spirit this year was very strong, even though it also felt like a little bit less chaotic than years past.
It's interesting. Some of the trends I see, because I've been doing this since '07, what I notice is a lot of stuff is happening outside of the conference.
That's true.
Okay, so vendors, instead of putting money over into the expo, they're renting restaurants, they're taking over restaurants, they're taking over hotel rooms, and they're doing meetings in there, right? And so I've seen this continued trend of stuff pushing out to the perimeter. So now the perimeter's packed. Like, you want to get a dinner place, like, you've got to go pretty far away to find a place because everything is rented out, right? And that's a trend I just continue to see. That maybe drops the chaoticness a little bit, right? But the other thing I noticed on the floor is it's almost a desperation to get your badge scanned. Like, they're all the gimmicks to try to get you to the booth, right? Like the goats and the puppy dogs. And,
yes.
Yeah.
I agree. And I mentioned this yesterday. I'll mention it again, though, that we had started kind of taking bets on how many dollars were spent on toys for the show floor.
Yeah.
There was a lot of, I agree, the desperation to get the
People,
scans.
get the people at the booth. Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, well, I got this at a booth, so I guess I fell prey.
Yeah, you did. It looks good on you, though. It's a nice hat.
Thank you.
I like embroidered hats, right? You need the embroidery, otherwise.
Well, this is one where you get to choose how you want. You got to choose which hat you wanted, and then you got to choose which patch you wanted.
Perfect.
And they put it together.
Nice.
Right.
Nice. Yes. Lots of tchotchkes.
Yes.
The other thing I noticed, which was really, really interesting on the trend side, is some of the big public vendors are downsizing their booths.
Did you?
Yeah, they're not as, like, they used to all be in the front row. They all used to be like towards towards the front. And I'm seeing this trend of them, they're here, but they're not here at the same level they used to be. Now that they're public, CrowdStrike is everywhere, by the way. CrowdStrike's got the lounge across the street.
And Illumio.
Yeah, they're just huge presences, but Illumio's not public yet, right?
Okay.
Right, so they want to go public, so
true.
I fully expect that. But you take Tenable, that they're still pretty big booth, but they're kind of back a little bit. Rapid7 went to a 10 by 20. Even CyberRisk kind of went to a smaller size, right? They're all public companies. They don't maybe need as much of the brand presence here that other companies like Illumio and others who want to go public need, right? And so that was a really other interesting twist. I'm just so used to seeing certain vendors in the front.
With magnificent, huge. Yes, that's
not
true.
as much.
I imagine that'll follow at Black Hat. And I thought it was similar at Black Hat. I felt like there was some things in the expo floor that felt simpler and more streamlined.
Yeah.
Even though there were more people and more, how do I put this? People who were just kind of like disassociated and not paying attention.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's because of the inundation of AI information or not.
Right, maybe. We're gonna get to some awards later. All right, so I want to run through a few highlights. So the Innovation Sandbox winner, Project Discovery, very interesting exploit vulnerability company with a way to build your own exploit framework. Paul actually interviewed them, I think, on Paul's Security Weekly. They win the Sandbox on Monday. It's kind of, remember our first kickoff, what I say about continuous threat exposure management, right? Yeah, Innovation Sandbox kind of went there, right?
Yes.
So that was interesting. I just thought that was an interesting one. You went to the DARPA experience. I did not. What'd you think?
I think I'm always blown away by DARPA. I'm blown away by the level of intelligence and the real world situations that they are consistently striving for. And I was shocked by the experience, not because you were mentioning like maybe it was overwhelming to people.
I heard it was a little almost overwhelming, that they didn't know where to go or where to start, that it was, I guess, kind of self-guided, but there wasn't a lot of pointers to like what you should do and where you should go.
Okay, and I can see that. My experience was different. Of course, I got to spend an extended period there with Andrew Carney, I believe is his name, that was heading up the experience. And going through the discussion with them, we centered very much on how and why the competition came about, what it took to pull off this 2-year-long competition, the factors that went into evaluating from their first 90 submissions, getting down to 42 and now down to 7, and what the 7 teams are doing and what they've actually seen from the cyber reasoning models that these teams are putting together. And then understanding, it was fascinating. I can see why people entering would not necessarily know where to go.
Right.
But one thing that I valued was, first, there's a simulated train ride where you go.
Right.
And it was very accessible for the wheelchair and for my dog. It was wonderful. And then once you're inside, you can choose which area you want to go to. But they had DARPA representatives wearing different colored windbreakers with the different colored emblems on the back, so you could see who was a tech expert in this certain area, and then you had the availability to just speak with them. I spent an extended period in the hospital section and got to speak with several of the technical members about how they created the 100 synthetic vulnerabilities. And how and why, what training data they used in order to identify what should be done. And then interestingly, like as the contest has gone on for these 2 years, getting to see that they can't really plan ahead. They have to make it instantaneously and then make the team use their cyber reasoning system live on the spot. So there's a very dynamic approach, even though the entire experience had to be spun up quickly.
Right.
I could see where people would be overwhelmed by the amount of information that's available.
That's just what I heard. I didn't get a chance to go over there. I was curious on your thoughts.
Oh yeah, and it makes sense to me why at DEF CON last year that there were people that spent all their days there.
Right. Being immersed in it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I found it interesting that one of the teams did locate a real-world zero-day in the DARPA setup while trialing their cyber reasoning systems.
Wow. Awesome. Awesome. A couple other really interesting kind of highlights for me, and I don't know what you saw. I want to talk about, so I saw a reemergence of runtime application security.
Okay.
Over in early stage expo, I saw a lot of companies focused on this, and I went up to a couple of them and I'm like, why? And it has to do with eBPF, the Cilium-based project that came out around 2018. It's gotten very mature.
Do you know what eBPF?
It's
eBPF?
It's the Berkeley packet filter. I can't remember what the E stands for.
Okay.
But people use it as a sensor. It's a kernel-based sensor, and it's gotten really mature, and so they're getting a lot more data out of it on the runtime side. And there's this like reemergence of runtime application security startups coming out of the woodworks. So that was really interesting to me because I did some work on the runtime side when I was at Layered Insight with containers. eBPF was really, really new back then. It's really matured. So that was a really interesting trend. And obviously, AI was everywhere.
Yes.
On this conference.
It was in everything.
Pretty much.
Although again, full respect to the few vendors that I did interact with that were stating like, no, we're not using AI other than perhaps in their office, for general employee productivity. But some had decided to run numbers and had created their large language models and decided that no, we're actually still getting better results doing it at this point with our traditional means. So those I have respect for.
Yeah.
They're looking at the data and going, no, we're not going to put this out there and try to garner more attention on something that we don't believe is helping.
Yeah, I one of the interviews I did was on vibe coding and the ability for AI to generate code, which was just crazy, scary, and fascinating. Obviously, a lot of AI governance. I'm even seeing emergence of AI security from a behavior standpoint because it's so dynamic in what these models can do, the inputs, the prompts, the outputs. How do you monitor for that? It's not like scanning for a CVE. You almost have to understand the behavior of these AI systems to look for weird anomalies when it decides to go rogue. Like,
Right.
there's so much, I think it's early days, but I see so much interesting stuff starting to evolve that are I think will actually solve some real problems.
I cannot agree more. Again, I don't know if I said this to you. I think it's fantastic that we happen to be in an industry that has the data and that can make a more effective use of AI more quickly. And
Yeah.
so seeing that, also, I feel like we're at the nexus of a large change or increase in. Do you remember Freakonomics? Do you
Yeah.
remember the book
Uh-huh.
like that? I feel that even on the security side, with the amount of information, whether you're talking about like the sensors, we can talk about
Yep.
that before, but with using AI and the AI agents and the ability to monitor so many more of the thousands upon thousands of variables that are going on, that each
Right.
company is going to get unexpected, useful insights. Not just that, oh, well, we've switched to remote work and we now understand we have 7 employees in this one city, maybe we should build an office there. But being able to go, oh, wow, I think there will be a lot of information that is gathered that helps them redirect the trajectory of the company or internal operations that goes beyond what we expect at this moment.
Yeah.
And I also felt like deepfake detection was discussed a lot. I had several interesting conversations. One with Bree Frost, who had run wasn't a learning lab, I think it was just a briefing where they used every currently available open source deepfake detector live on stage, and they had everybody in the audience participate.
Yeah.
And not one of them gave satisfactory results.
Yeah.
None of them could detect the deep fakes correctly.
Wow.
But then I did speak with a couple of other vendors who are working on proprietary deep fake
Right.
generation.
Yeah,
ID.
I mean, open source may get you so far, but there's going to be so much new innovation and intellectual property produced
Right.
that some of that stuff may not get open sourced.
Oh, that's good too.
And any other highlights? I got 3 awards I want to hand out
Don't.
before we wrap up.
Well, other highlights. Again, for me, I think a lot of the staff was incredibly helpful. I felt that there was a very good organizational aspect to how the conference itself ran. So
Yeah.
that was beautiful. I don't know, our weather was really good. We had really great weather.
We were 50 to 60. It was kind of in a 10-degree range pretty much all week.
Yeah, no, but I want to know what awards you want to bring
So
up.
I don't pick these out in advance.
Okay.
So my philosophy is when I go to the show floor, I go to the edges, the back,
Right.
I go through the middle,
Right.
and same thing on the other side, right? So I don't go to I know all those vendors, right? And so I want to see kind of the new stuff. And so as I'm going through, I'm taking notes. And then what I'm doing is I'm making up, I'm just kind of making up awards as I go to highlight some things. And then I go up to Early Stage Expo and I do the same thing. Now, I didn't pull any awards from Early Stage Expo. I didn't get a chance to go through the whole thing. I got through about 2/3 of it before they closed down because I had some really interesting conversations, but there's a couple more I wanted to get to. So my 3 awards this year. So the first one is who can articulate their message the best, right? So it's really interesting, right? I'm what I'm called a 3-word power position guy.
Okay.
If you got 3 words to describe your strategy or your vision or where you're going, what are they?
Okay.
I thought Mark Thurman at Tenable did a fabulous job in his keynote yesterday. He boiled it down to unified, intelligence, agentic. So unified, bring data together from a contextual perspective.
Right.
Use that to extract better outcomes and use agentic to actually facilitate the remediation.
Which is brilliant, and it makes me wonder, are you talking about then proprietary agents that for each company, or?
Maybe, I don't know. I don't know how it's going to get articulated and how it gets built yet, but that was the concept, is that AI will help you unify data. The AI models will help you extract more intelligent outcomes, which is what this whole industry is about. But then the ability to use agentic AI to actually take action and remediate. I thought that was it was very succinct,
Right.
right? And there's probably a couple others I didn't get to, but I thought that was interesting.
That's true. I appreciate the switch of thinking of an agent to the agentic and thinking of that as an action. Like it is taking, which you can go back to the DARPA thing about having autonomous AI cyber reasoning that is finding the patches and patching all at once, doing it. And that is exciting, the action-oriented part. Now, how we monitor all of that, I don't know yet. But
well, we just talked about all the other challenges with AI, so hold your horses.
Right.
All right, most surprising vendor on the show floor.
Interesting. For me, or just for you?
I have one.
Most surprising. I can't yet.
I rarely take a double take on the floor. I walked by this booth, I stopped, I turned around, Capital One.
Oh.
They're not
they
a security
have a
company.
cybersecurity product?
Yes. They built a tokenization product that they are making available commercially.
Why do I feel like I did hear about this?
It floored me. You're walking through, you don't expect to see Capital Bank unless they're trying to recruit cyber guys.
Right.
No, they built a product. And so it tokenizes sensitive data so that if hackers get a hold of it, it's completely useless.
So that, you mean it's to customers?
Yeah.
Not corporate customers, but individual customers?
They're going to sell it as as an enterprise product.
Oh, wow.
Yes, completely shocked me. Like I'm used to seeing security startups, but to see a bank actually build a product and come to RSA and put it on the floor, that's my most surprising vendor.
That sounds I agree, and that sounds very intelligent on their side because being a bank and positioned as they are, having the resources
they have a
and
lot
the
of
teams,
privacy data, yeah.
Yes. I could see why it would be an easy transition to go, hey, here's another application for what we've already had to figure out.
Yep.
Wow, that's really cool.
Yep. My last award, Buzzword Bingo winner. Remember the buzzwords we talked about on Monday when we kicked this off?
That's right.
What were they? Do you remember?
No. CTEM?
Was. CTEM and AI. Yes. So this booth used the term Agentic AI CTEM. They hit them all for me.
Did you give them a prize?
Ridge Security is the company. Ridge Security. No.
They were on my list. I didn't get to that one.
I walked by their booth. I looked at it, said Agentic AI CTEM. I turned and looked at them. I said, you just won Buzzword Bingo.
Did they bow?
No, I don't think so. They probably had no idea what I was talking about. Mandy, thank you so much for joining us this week. We had an awesome week, everyone. Thank you for watching, listening. You can find all of our content on securityweekly.com/RIC 2025, I believe. I hope you enjoyed the show. We'll see you again next year at the conference.